This has been a very interesting hearing. Mr. Waltz, welcome to Oversight. Yes, it usually gets like this. Look, let's be very clear. This isn't about Hunter Biden's white privilege. It's about Hunter Biden's Democrat privilege. Because Donald Trump Jr. showed up for 5 congressional subpoenas. There was never this circus where he was subpoenaed by House Democrats and he showed up on the Senate side or showed up at the White House to answer in some fake, phony, lame press conference, not actually going to the House and doing what he was compelled by a subpoena to do. Hunter Biden did that.
You just witnessed a moment that separates politicians who talk from leaders who stand. What Byron Donalds did here isn't just about winning an argument. It's about defending truth in a room that's forgotten what that even means. On one side, you've got Congressman Donalds, calm, focused, armed with facts and reason. On the other, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, doing what the radical left has perfected, turning every issue into a performance. And that's really what this clash represents. It's the contrast between order and chaos, between those who believe in accountability and those who believe the rules only apply when convenient. People like AOC love to lecture America about fairness, but when fairness finally arrives at their doorstep, suddenly it's unfair. That's the game. Twist the truth, play the victim, and hope nobody notices. But Byron Donalds noticed. He didn't fall for it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He just stood firm, let the facts do the talking, and reminded everyone that the Constitution isn't optional. So, as you watch this exchange, remember what's really on display. Reason versus rhetoric. Principle versus posturing. If you're ready for a voice that cuts through the noise and stands for liberty, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's break down this powerful moment together.
Look, let's be very clear. This isn't about Hunter Biden's white privilege. It's about Hunter Biden's Democrat privilege. Because Donald Trump Jr. showed up for 5 congressional subpoenas. There was never this circus where he was subpoenaed by House Democrats and he showed up on the Senate side or showed up at the White House to answer in some fake, phony, lame press conference, not actually going to the House and doing what he was compelled by a subpoena to do. Hunter Biden did that. And then he has the unmitigated gall to show up here when we know that we're going through actually the legislation for contempt, with, by the way, Mr. Chairman, we should actually get to the legislation of contempt. The speechifying is great, but let's do our business, members. He has the gall to come here, show up, and then when the Democrats are saying, hey, he wants to speak, he leaves. This is a joke. This is a farce. The man has been subpoenaed by Congress. Oh, and by the way, the January 6th committee, Mr. Raskin, which you did sit on, by the way, that was not a normally ordered committee of Congress because Nancy Pelosi did not want the Republican members that then Leader McCarthy put up.
According to the courts, it was.
My time, sir.
Will you yield for a correction?
I was respectful of your time. I didn't say anything. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's move forward with our business. He should be held in contempt. There was a subpoena. He did not answer it. Any other American will be held in contempt by Congress. Any other. This is Democrat privilege of the highest order. Let's do our jobs. I yield.
Gentleman yields. Chair now recognizes Ms. Ocasio-Cortez from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to address briefly, quickly, that moment about privilege and all of this that we're seeing here. It was a very beautiful speech. As also the Republican side had mentioned in their many raisings of the January 6th committee, that it's not just Hunter Biden, you, me, any individual subject to equal treatment under the law, to be held up to accountability under the law, but it is also these committees and this committee that is subject to oversight and law. We must comply with the law here as well. Now, I may be one of the very few people that actually believes in Congress, in this country, but I do, and many of us do here. And we have an obligation to engage in good faith participation to execute and comply with the subpoena. The chairman said in front of the country several times to Hunter Biden, you can show up here in front of the world, in front of the public. Hunter Biden took him up on that offer. He said, I will show up in public. I will show up in public. He showed up here today. he showed up here in the past. And Mr. Chairman, I know you do your best with what you've got, but you've got members here that have submitted falsified evidence to the record. You have members here that have submitted and mischaracterized closed-door hearings, and people want to say back and forth at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what party it's happened from. You've got members who've engaged in revenge porn in this committee. So it is understandable why Hunter Biden would want to testify in front of the public for the American people to be able to witness that testimony for themselves. You've got members who've defied subpoenas. You've got members who we are 1 year into the term asking what the rules are at the beginning of the committee. The book was given to us on day one. And so what we should do is allow the man to testify. I believe in the power of the Oversight Committee. Frankly, I believe in it regardless of whether Republicans or Democrats have the chair, because I believe that this committee should have the power of oversight, and we cannot do that on a partisan basis. And so for that, I implore this committee to allow Hunter Biden to testify publicly. I implore and I ask for that to happen. And we cannot do that by getting engaged in this back and forth on a defiance of the subpoena. Let him comply. Let him do it today. Let him do it tomorrow. But let the man do it. And with that, I yield back to the ranking member.
Thank you, Ms. Ocasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. First, it was said in this hearing, Mr. Chairman, about you specifically, that you repeatedly said you would give Mr. Biden any opportunity. He could choose which one to come and speak in front of this committee. He could do it by deposition. He could do it by open hearing. It was up to him. The truth of the matter, though, is that the chairman's words are not binding. Like, no other member's words of Congress are really not binding. The binding article.
Point of order. Does the chairman agree with that? Point of order. Does the chairman agree?
Are you going to restore my time?
Point of order. Just point of order. Does the chairman agree that the chairman's words are not binding on the committee?
That's not a point of order. It has nothing to do with the order of this hearing. Thank you. Can I go back to 4 minutes and 34 seconds? That's where I was before I was interrupted by Mr. Raskin.
Yes, reset the clock.
Thank you. Thank you. What is binding is the actual written document, the written language in the subpoena, because a subpoena from this committee is also signed off on by the clerk of the House. That is the binding document that matters here. That is what governs. That's number one. Number two, that was said in this hearing. It was said that our witnesses said that there was no basis for an impeachment. But remember, members on the Democrat side of the aisle, what was said by Mr. Turley at the time was that there was plenty of evidence for the continuation of an impeachment inquiry. And the purpose of that hearing was the relevance basis for an impeachment inquiry. The House has now voted for an impeachment inquiry. And one of the first things that the House did after the vote of an impeachment inquiry was to subpoena Hunter Biden to appear. Hunter Biden has evaded that subpoena. So flagrantly did he evade it that he decided to show up at the Senate side to give a press conference, and Eric Swalwell, a member of the House, helped him get that time on the Senate side to give a press conference. That's a flagrant violation of a congressional subpoena. Secondarily, he has the gall to show up here when we're actually discussing contempt. And he didn't stay. He was sitting right over there. He's not here now. He said he wants to talk. He could have stayed through the whole proceeding. He chose to leave. That's his business. But he was subpoenaed to come here. Back in December, he chose not to of his own volition. He's in violation of that subpoena, a subpoena that was executed with the signature of the clerk of the House of Representatives. That is the document that is binding. That's what we work off of. Mr. Chairman, I actually want to submit for the record an article from The Hill written by Jonathan Turley, and it is titled Eric Swalwell and the Politics of Contempt.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. I'm glad something got admitted to the record. Last, a couple other points. One quick point I want to make, and this is in reference to the minority's report about this $7.8 million. I want the minority to understand one very important distinction between President Biden and President Trump. President Trump has an international real estate portfolio that he has amassed over decades. I'm quite sure if you go back through all of the hotel receipts before he was president of the United States, that you had foreign dignitaries staying at Trump hotels all across the world.
Will the gentleman yield?
I'm not going to yield, Mr. Raskin. I'm making a point because they're actually very nice hotels. They look good. People like staying there. President Trump was not running the Trump Organization when he was president of the United States. To my recollection, Eric Trump, the president's son, was actually running the Trump Organization when President Trump was president of the United States. So if he had a portfolio of hotels and people choose, through Expedia, through Kayak, through Hotels.com, if they choose to go and stay there, how is that the president being in violation of what the emoluments clause? That's what you're citing? Stop. Ladies and gentlemen, America, this is ridiculous. The Biden family has no business. They've never had a business except for politics. And the one thing that the Oversight Committee, in conjunction with the Ways and Means Committee and in conjunction with the Judiciary Committee, has always been able to demonstrate is that they shook down foreign nations for millions, 26 million at the latest count and growing, millions. And there was never any business entity involved except public corruption and a pay-for-play scheme. We have questions for Hunter Biden. We issued a subpoena for him to answer said questions. He ignored a congressional subpoena as a private citizen. There are many attorneys on the other side of the aisle.
Where do you even start with that? That was a masterclass. Let's break this down. Byron Donalds opened with a line that cut right through the noise. This isn't about white privilege. It's about Democrat privilege. One sentence, and suddenly the entire narrative shifted. Because he's right. The rules are different if you're wearing the blue jersey. If your last name is Biden, the system bends over backward to protect you. But if your last name is Trump, you're treated like a public enemy. Donalds brings up a simple but devastating comparison. Donald Trump Jr. complied with every subpoena thrown his way. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden ignores a formal, legally binding subpoena and strolls into a press conference like he's starring in his own documentary. And what happens next? Democrats sprint to defend him. The media acts like it's normal. The same crowd that spent years screaming, "No one is above the law," suddenly finds an exception. It's not justice anymore. It's politics dressed up as process. Then AOC jumps in. And here's where the mask slips. Instead of responding to the actual point, Hunter Biden refusing a subpoena, she goes full performance mode. She drags in civil rights committees, historical subcommittees, anything to change the subject. It's classic left-wing sleight of hand. When the facts aren't on your side, just cry injustice and accuse your opponent of bad faith. It's not debate. It's distraction. She even tries to argue that a casual public statement from the chairman somehow nullifies a legal subpoena. Think about that for a second. Since when does a soundbite overrule the rule of law? Either AOC doesn't understand how Congress works, or she's banking on the fact that her audience doesn't. Either way, Byron Donalds wasn't buying it, and neither should you. And then, the desperation hits a new low. Out of nowhere, she starts throwing out unrelated accusations, revenge porn, bad acts, random committee gossip, anything to cloud the moment. It's like a magician tossing smoke in the air to hide the trick. But Byron didn't flinch. He didn't interrupt. He didn't get emotional. He just waited for the noise to stop and then dropped the hammer. Calm, surgical, devastating. He reminded her and everyone watching of one basic truth. A subpoena is not optional. It's the law. He explained point by point why her argument was nonsense, and then turned the spotlight right back on the Biden family's corruption and double standards. He didn't just win that exchange, he exposed the rot behind the theatrics. This is what leadership looks like. Composure under pressure, principle over popularity. While AOC was performing for the cameras, Byron Donalds was speaking for every American who's sick of politicians rewriting the rules for themselves. And if you thought that was powerful, wait until you hear what he said next, when he wasn't holding back for Congress, but speaking freely to conservatives at CPAC.
I serve on a committee with Ocasio-Cortez. Oh, you've heard of her. Okay. And she literally believes that we can print whatever we want. It doesn't matter how much we borrow. It doesn't matter how much we spend. But she can believe all that while she drives her nice little Tesla and lives in one of the most expensive apartments in Washington, D.C. You see, the left loves to deride capitalism, but they actually love capitalism. They love what it creates for them. But they want you, and they want me, and they want every hardworking American to bend the knee. But America has woken up, and we have realized that we're not going down a socialist road, and we're going to fight them.
He's absolutely right. And what makes Byron Donalds so effective is that he doesn't just see the hypocrisy from afar. He lives it every single day inside those committee rooms. He watches members of Congress, people like AOC and her so-called squad, preach economic justice while living like royalty off taxpayer-funded salaries. They rail against capitalism, yet they're the first in line for every luxury it produces. AOC drives a Tesla, lives in one of the most expensive zip codes in Washington, and still wants to lecture working Americans about fairness. That's not leadership. That's performance art. And it's not just hypocrisy. It's dangerous ideology. These are the same voices pushing the idea that money is just a social construct, that we can print trillions of dollars without consequences. That debt doesn't matter. That inflation is just a buzzword. Meanwhile, families across America are paying more for food, gas, rent, and everything else because of that exact reckless mindset. It's the kind of thinking that collapses economies and erodes nations from the inside out. Byron Donalds represents something different, something rare in Washington. He stands for restraint, accountability, and the rule of law. He reminds people that freedom only works when responsibility comes with it. And when he speaks, he doesn't wrap it in political theater or emotional bait. He just tells the truth plainly and unapologetically. That's why his words hit harder than all the shouting from the other side combined. You and I both know this isn't just about one committee hearing or one viral moment. It's about the larger fight for America's direction. Are we going to be a country grounded in law, logic, and liberty? Or a nation run by sound bites, hashtags, and manufactured outrage? So, what do you think? Are we finally seeing a new wave of leaders with enough backbone to challenge this radical ideology head on? Or are these moments still too few and far between? Either way, it's clear that every time Byron Donalds steps up, he exposes the left's playbook for what it is: emotional manipulation masquerading as compassion. The battle for this nation's future isn't happening in the headlines. It's happening in those hearings, in those exchanges, in moments just like this. And it's being fought by voices who refuse to be silenced by media pressure or political convenience. Byron Donalds didn't flinch. He didn't backpedal. He didn't fall for the distractions. He stood tall, stayed focused, and reminded everyone what real leadership looks like. That's why his presence matters, because truth, delivered calmly and confidently, still cuts through the noise. So, if you value honesty over hysteria and facts over feelings, keep standing with those who actually defend this country's principles. Because when men like Byron Donalds speak truth to chaos, that's how we take America back, one debate at a time. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, and never be afraid to speak the truth.